I'm going to read this introduction just so everyone can hear it. At this meeting, the Commission will hold hearings on notices of intent, requests for determination of applicability. The Commission will also be voting on decisions and taking up other business. No hearing times have been assigned to specific agenda items, and the Commission will take them up in the order they are listed. Discussion and action items may be taken up at any time. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending provisions of open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting online. The Commission welcomes participation in the meeting by the applicants and general public. Attending the meeting tonight are all 6 conservation members: Eric Foley, Marilyn Frank, Margaret Wheeler, Ann Jeffries, and Jim Gazzo. This meeting is recorded by Westford Cat. We respectfully ask that everyone mute their computer microphones and phones when they are not in use to avoid unnecessary noise during the meeting. This is an open meeting, so all panelists who have access to the chat panel, please only use chat for technical issues related to the video conferencing. The Commission will proceed by opening the agenda items, having the applicant or the representative present the project, or if previously opened in a public meeting, they will provide a brief summary of the project. The Commission and staff will follow with questions, and then we will open up the public for questions and comments. At this point, if you wish to participate, you will raise your hand and your microphone will be unmuted for you to participate. Due to the limitations of the platform, attendees that are accessing the meeting via the telephone number at the top of the agenda will only be able to listen to the proceedings and will not be able to contribute. Please access the video conference via the link on the agenda, even if you do not have a webcam to participate. Okay, everybody present? Eric present?
Here.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Jim?
I hope so. You guys hear me?
You're back. Yep, you're good. Okay, our first agenda item is open forum. Any of the Commission members have anything for open forum? Carol, do you have anything for open forum?
Yeah, I'd like to just mention a couple of things. One was actually just mentioned while we were waiting to get live. So I just want to note again that town meeting is going to be on June 20th. It's going to be at 10 a.m. and it's at the Westford Academy field. And it's hoped that by consolidating the warrant and doing some consent items into the consent calendar, things will go really quickly and move along. There's a lot of work being done to get that ready. And we have the revolving fund account article on there, and I have a Healthy Westford CPC request, so I'm hoping it all goes forward. I wanted to just also note that we had a lot of help from the highway department getting some trees removed from trees that came down in the microburst or that big storm a couple Fridays ago. Where was it a couple Fridays ago, Eric? Or was it just last Friday?
It'll be 2 weeks this Friday, so not even 2 weeks. Yeah, I personally saw that come down my road, and they assisted me, so that was tremendous.
Yeah, so they've been a big help. I did give some emergency approvals for work to be done at Summer Village to get the trees off of the buildings, the trees off of the area. It was pretty much a devastation all around the waterfront area, so they had to just do some emergency work to get things so they could move about and assess the damage. So they've done some of that, and at 58 Dunstable, there was a woman who needed some trees that had just uprooted right on the shoreline. And there are some other, sorry? Oh, there are some other people who are looking into whether or not they have storm damage things. I think they may combine them with filings for additional trees. Because as some have noted that, once some of the trees come out, it sometimes weakens some of the surrounding trees or makes them more vulnerable. So I haven't heard back yet from Town Council on Marcus Lewis State Camp's contract. I do have a request in, so I anticipate at least by next meeting, if there's anything else we needed to do, we'll have that. But I just wanted to make sure you knew it's on track. And just today I received a request for an emergency certification for a beaver pipe at Bixby Lane, which is the Blanchard Farms Condominium Association. The pond outlet pipe is clogged, and Beaver Solutions would like to put in a beaver flow pipe through an emergency certification. So if there's no objection, I'll do that. And then at the next meeting, I'll have you ratify that.
Okay.
And I'm still waiting to hear from 75 Tenney Road. Haven't had any response to my emails recently. I know they started to put their application together because they got their abutter notification done. So I'm still working on trying to get them into compliance.
Okay.
That's it.
Great. Any items from open forum from the audience? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our first agenda item, which is a continuation of a public hearing and issue order of conditions for Vern at 3 Lower Road, 3341745.
Hello, how are you all?
Great.
Can you identify?
Any questions on the order conditions?
No, everything looked fine from what I briefed my, Nicole let me take a look at that, and everything seems perfectly doable.
Okay, any changes from the commission?
No.
All good?
Oh, good.
Yes, sir.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the order of conditions?
So moved. Second.
Eric,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Margaret,
Yes.
Jim? And Peter, yes. Motion to close the public hearing.
Moved. Second.
Eric,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Margaret,
Yes.
Jim? Peter, yes. Okay, we're going to move on to our,
Peter, can I just tell Steve, I will have the commission sign this tomorrow and work on getting it ready. I'll let you or Nicole know when it's available for pickup or
Okay.
it might go in the mail.
sounds
Thank you
good.
very much, Carol. We appreciate all the help, and thank you everyone else on the board. We appreciate it.
Yep, good luck.
All right, thank you. Have
What
a good
time do you
night.
want us to come by tomorrow, Carol, for signatures?
If I've got the space booked for 1:15 to 2, does that work for everyone?
Yes.
Works.
Yes.
Fine by me.
Yep, should be good.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our second agenda item, which is a public hearing for Bergeron Machine, 65 Powers Road, 3341746. I have to recuse myself because I am an abutter via the Vinebrook Trust.
Okay, so I'm going to read this. This is a legal notice under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Wetlands Protection Act and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171. The Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 27, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. via webinar on the notice of intent application of Mark Kelly Bergeron Machine, Inc. for the construction of the 2,000 square foot addition for warehouse space and reconfiguration of paved areas for access and parking within 100 feet of a jurisdictional wetland at 65 Powers Road, Assessors Map 005, Parcel 0012, Lot 0000. There you go. Good evening.
Hello,
Hello.
can you hear me now?
You have the floor.
All right, thank you. For the record, Chris Anderson with Hannigan Engineering here on behalf of Bergeron Machines for the construction of a 2,000 square foot building addition onto the rear portion of the existing building at 65 Powers Road. We can see on your page now, I apologize, I'm trying to. Yep. So actually looking at the plan, we have Powers Road that runs along the bottom portion of the page. Currently, there is a paved driveway / parking area that surrounds the entire building, which essentially creates a loop configuration with an intermediate roadway connection in the front of the building. Much of the area around the building is pretty much rendered developed via landscaped areas, pavement, and gravel. The wetland resource areas are located near the rear portion of the property. Resource areas include a bordering vegetated wetlands, a potential vernal pool located along the furthest back property line, bordering land subject to flooding, and natural heritage resource areas that are located pretty much right along the tree line of the property. I guess if we go to the next one, please. So it's our intent, as I said before, to construct a 2,000 square foot building addition near the backside of the property. And then to construct a 24-foot wide paved drive aisle to loop around that portion of the site in order to gain access, to maintain the continued access against the back of the building. Areas of pavement will be removed in and around the building and the outer extremities of the parking area, primarily because now that we're readjusting everything, we can conserve and consolidate much of the parking, and that way we can pull back a little bit more of the pavement within the back portion of the property. With all said and done, we're actually looking at a net decrease of about 2,600 square feet of impervious area on the property, which will aid in the both the stormwater management side of everything and the natural heritage and wetland concerns near the back portion of the property. Along the back portion of this driveway extension, we'll be constructing a stone apron to allow for velocity mitigation as runoff exits the site. Currently, the site has no structural BMPs for stormwater management, and water potentially sheet flows from Powers Road all the way down and unabated towards the wetland series. As I said before, we're removing a fair amount of impervious areas throughout the property, which will aid in the reduction in the peak rates of flows and the volumetric impact caused by the paved parking areas. As part of this construction, we're not proposing any additional tree clearing on the property. The location of the drive access around the back portion of the building is located within the existing gravel parking area near the backside of the building. So we're not cutting down any more trees or disturbing any more vegetation on the property itself. We'll be utilizing a straw wattle and silt fence along the limits of work, and that will be the permanent demarcation for work during the course of construction. Pretty much the gist of the project. If there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
So the area that's that you're going to pave behind the proposed addition to your structure, what is it currently now?
It's a little bit of pavement. It's about 10 feet of pavement, and the rest of it will be currently gravel.
Okay, so it's pretty much previously disturbed area.
Correct.
And you're going to be putting in new stormwater features because you're saying that pretty much it sheets flows off of Powers Road?
Yeah, so everything currently sheet flows off of Powers Road, or there's a slight ridge that forms along Powers Road, but currently everything flows unabated towards this area. So as part of the construction, we'll be constructing a stone apron along the outer perimeter of the parking area, which will allow for the velocity reduction as the water exits the site as it is now. That, in combination with the fact that we're reducing the amount of impervious and the volume coming off of the property, it complies with stormwater management regulations.
And you've reached out to National Heritage in regards to the rare and endangered species or a species of special concern?
Yes, I did reach out to them. They were asking me a few questions, just primarily asking for digital copies of the documents, but I know I believe they're still within the 30-day review period, and with the current COVID issues, I don't know if they're going to be able to turn it around in that time frame, but they are asking for at least the digital copies of documents. Beyond that, I haven't heard back from them.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments?
No.
Carol?
So I haven't been to the site yet. I wanted to have the first hearing and find out if there was anything we wanted in particular to be looked at. I guess one question I have about the gravel area that's being proposed to pave is that something that was once approved by the Conservation Commission, or is it something that's been sort of become an artificial surface because of just plowing? And, I'm just not sure whether it's part of the original approved plans.
To that point, I know the building was built, I believe, back in the 70s, which predates a lot of the current regulations. If it's been there, if it was there prior to the enactment of the act, I don't know, to be honest with you. What we look at right now is what's currently on the property, and that's where we're starting. That's where our starting point is.
Okay, well, I haven't been there. I guess I wanted to see whether or not it is something that's just been created from plowing or some other more recent infraction, because we've had some of that along Powers Road on some previous applications that have come before the commission. And I haven't done the wetland site visit yet either, but I can certainly schedule to do that sometime. The application's been filed with the planning board, and they are evidently going to be holding their first hearing next week. Usually they will also be looking for engineering comments and review. I don't believe engineering's been asked to perform that quite yet, so I do think we're going to want to get the same input from the town engineers before we go any further with whether this meets the redevelopment to the fullest extent or whether engineering is going to be looking for something more. I mean, I think although you're removing some of the impervious area, it's all from the front of the site. So other than the stone apron, I'm not sure that the wetlands are getting any much more benefit. We usually like to have more natural area between the wetland and the impervious areas. So I
What's
guess we'll
this
see.
distance proposed right now, Carol? About 60?
Yeah, it's about 55 to 60, I think. So it certainly meets the setback. If it's just, again, be looking for whatever
Looking for
improvements we can
opportunity.
see. Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe
and-
something that prevents plowing, snow, salt, sand, whatever, into the back of the area. Maybe do the snow storage in the corners and on the sides of the property rather than the back.
Yeah, I don't know, Chris, if you addressed snow storage, did you?
I believe it is. I believe it's in the landscaping plan. Hold on 1 sec.
I couldn't understand what either Carol or
Sorry, no. Sorry, I was just flipping through my PDF version of it. Does not look like it is, but there is areas within the corner of the parking corner areas. There's plenty of space along the front of the building. So we can, if the commission would like, have show potential areas for snow storage that are located throughout the site. That's
helpful.
very doable.
So if there was some kind of a, not a guardrail, but maybe a wooden post and rail along the back edge rather than just that stone apron, because that stone apron really seems to be, to me, it would seem to encourage just pushing snow, salt, sand, etc., directly back towards the wetlands.
Okay. Would the commission be open to?
So I think if we're not going to have comments back from Natural Heritage, we won't be able to do much with it until we get those. Originally, I was thinking that you might want to continue it out to our second meeting in June, which would be, Chris, would be the 24th of June. Do you think that's timely enough to hear back from them, or what did you want to do for continuation?
The commission only having the one meeting in June, or is there a second one?
That is the second.
Okay.
That's the second one. The first one is June 10th. I think we're too early for that if to get anything back from engineering.
Okay.
Eric, I have a question as an abutter.
Sure, Peter.
So there's a large storage container behind the building. I wonder what's being stored in that. And another comment is that many times I see a large amount of wooden trash. It looks like they uncrate something all the time. And I noticed that those are also stored back on the back edge of the parking lot, close to the wetland.
But like pallets or crates, wooden.
It looks like they unpack stuff, wooden crates that they get torn apart. Okay. And there's a dumpster back there.
That they're not showing presently. I mean, so presently this is happening in what area? Where this proposed building is, or this?
On the back side on the left, on the edge of the parking lot in the back. There's a dumpster there, and the large storage container is on the other side on the right. Once again, right on the other side of the pavement, where the pavement ends in his so-called gravel area starts.
Okay, we can have Carol look at that and, maybe we can find out what those activities are and see if they're going to continue as, once this addition is approved or what have you.
Carol?
I'll look into that as well.
Yes, Margaret.
Yes, would this site have an O&M plan?
Yeah, in their stormwater management report, they have their operation and maintenance. So that's
Okay.
part of your packet. You can take a look at that. That may change a little with engineering's comments, depending on whether they require any other BMPs or whether they're satisfied with what they've given. They would probably amend it to include the snow storage, as Jim has requested as well.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking as well, is to make sure that it's in the document, so any vendor, any contractors they bring in, it's very clear what they should and shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, so I would think that Chris will want to get all the comments from planning on their review and engineers before they make those changes, but we should track that one.
So it seems like we could get a bit of information, or there needs to be a bit of information to be presented to us to look at before we can really discuss this further. So are we looking at the second meeting in June or the first week in July?
I would believe the second week in June. I'll have a conversation with Natural Heritage in the morning, trying to figure out where they are with everything. I don't foresee engineering having too many issues, but if that is the case, the meeting's on June 1. I should be able to get it turned around pretty quickly. So I would request that if the commission would like to continue to the June 24th meeting, so that I can start getting a hold of various individuals and try to start moving things along as much as I can.
Do you have a time, Carol?
Well, everything's continued right now while we meet remotely just to 7:30. And then depending on what we have already scheduled for new public hearings, the continued ones, I kind of put tag on after those.
Okay, so we'll just leave it on the meeting for the 24th then.
My motion?
Any further questions from the audience? Seeing none, can I have a motion to continue the public hearing until June 24th?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Marilyn,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Margaret,
Yes,
Jim,
Yes.
Eric, yes. Okay, the meeting is continued to June 24th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our discussion items. The first one is the request to use portions of the boys' camp at Stony Brook, East Boston Camps for the summer of 2020 by Parks and Rec. Jim, you there?
I am here, and I thank you, Commission and Carol, for giving me the consideration and an opportunity to make this request of the Commission. Obviously, we're in some pretty unique circumstances as we all move forward with the current operating environment. And with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to give a little bit of detail and make the formal request.
Sure, go right ahead, Jim.
So with the current planning process related to recreation programs, there are a lot of different unknowns, and we are trying to provide an appropriate balance between meeting service needs as people try to get the economy going again, and providing some form of coverage for parents or families that need childcare during the day while they manage their hybrid schedules or the back to work schedules. And as we started to put together a plan to discuss with the Park and Rec Commission, the Board of Health, and the Board of Selectmen, a couple of times during the initial conversations, different people said to us, is there an opportunity for you to use the top of East Boston Camps based on the fact that Marcus Lewis is probably not going to operate up there? And at the initial suggestion of that, there had been no indication formally that he may not be operating up there. And I just chalked it up as a rumor. And then when we got the word that he was not going to operate up there this year, it became a little bit more of a potential, at least reality, to make the request, and that there might be some availability. Obviously, we are aware that that piece of property has many different uses, and even if Marcus Lewis isn't up there, that there may be other things that the commission wishes to do with the property. But as we started to look at our plan and all of the unknowns, we started to try to account for the flexibility that we might need in order to run a successful program, as well as having the space we might need for things like anticipated social distancing, anticipated requirements to put program participants in smaller, more delineated groups, the need to provide indoor space when the weather gets bad, which really is the primary driver for how we plan capacity at whatever program we run. The capacity we plan for is only as good as the indoor space we have. And then also, where could we run that would provide us with an opportunity to provide outside social distancing, along with some amenities nearby that would help us plan some meaningful and engaging activities. Obviously, we've run out of, and Carol, I apologize if I don't use the right terminology, but Carol told me there are very specific definitions. I've always referred to where we typically run out of as the lower camp. But I don't know if that's what you guys call it, but the area that Park and Rec typically uses. Carol, is that the girls' camp, or is the girls' camp on the other side?
No, the girls' camp's on the other side. So we usually call it the day camp, but I think everyone understands lower. That's fine.
Okay. So the day camp where we typically run is a great place. We love it. Very happy to run there. But in most years, we operate out of the Nabnasset School and out of the day camp. And when we do that, we have the opportunity to provide accessible facilities and programming as an option at the NAB school. And we have the opportunity to run the day camp program up at our summer rec program up at the day camp, and know that, those buildings don't provide the same level of accessibility. Well, one of the drivers for us this year in trying to determine where we're going to run is to pull back all of our resources and operate out of one location. We think that if we operate out of one location, it gives us the best chance of successfully adapting our program to the guidance that comes, having the appropriate staff available to react to whatever things may happen throughout the course of a day as we provide the care for these campers and the participants. And also, where's an area that gives us the most success in terms of engaging activities. And the East Boston Camps facility, by far and away, provides us a fantastic, hits all the high notes, with the exception of we don't have as much space as we may need to provide for the indoor capacity, and it's limited on accessibility. So as we run out of one location, we need to kind of check those boxes. And it was at that point where I had a conversation with Eric, and I had a conversation with Michelle, and the suggestion was made, does it make sense to reach out to the Conservation Commission and make a formal ask to see if there was an opportunity for us to have access to some of the buildings up at the boys' camp so that we could increase the indoor capacity, increase the ability to socially distance indoors, as well as increase the outside capacity and socially distance outside. So our initial request, and I say initial because depending on what comes from the state in terms of requirements for a summer program, we may have to react differently and use less space or use more space, or we may end up with not as many participants. There's so many variables that we can't plan for, but trying to narrow that scope of uncertainty, put the plan in place. We would ask the Conservation Commission, in light of the fact that Marcus isn't using it, if there was a possibility for us to access at least our initial thoughts are the dining hall, the rec hall, and the accessible restrooms. And I'd like to put an asterisk on that and say, depending on participation, if we had some flexibility to maybe use one or two of the other smaller cabin buildings up top, depending on how things work out, we'd like to keep that as an option if any of this is feasible.
Jim, this would just be Monday through Friday during the day time hours?
That is correct. So our initial conversations are, we would run Monday through Friday. That's accurate. We're trying to figure out, kind of strike the balance for financially feasible too. So where does the revenue and expense come in based on certain projections? Right now, we're anticipating accommodating somewhere between 40 and 60 kids, if possible, limiting it at 60 being the outside max because we've got to staff and cover the ratios appropriately. And we would run Monday through Friday. The main hours for the program are slated to be roughly 9 to 4. We're struggling with whether or not we're going to have staff that can cover an early morning drop off and a late extended day pickup option. We think we may need to eliminate those or only offer one of those because we do know that there's going to be some logistics related to cleaning and sanitation and preparation from a day-to-day basis that we may have to dedicate the staff time that would have been used for either early morning or late pickup to be able to accommodate and accomplish those cleaning requirements in terms of, preparing for the next day. So there are a lot of unknowns, but yes, roughly 9 to 4 Monday through Friday, possibly an early morning or an extended day option, but right now we don't know if that's a reality.
And with Marcus Lewis, we always have public access to the road going through it, and we would certainly want to have that continue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to make whatever accommodations are requested. It's all of the conversation that we're having is subject to input by the Board of Health and by the Park and Rec Commission and by the Board of Selectmen with regards to what they feel is appropriate and safe. I know that running a summer camp up there or a summer day program up there, that, having people from the outside traveling through, it's a concern, but I don't think it's a concern that we can't overcome. And I think if Marcus Lewis has been doing it successfully for years, that sets a precedent that this is something that can be accomplished and be accomplished in a safe manner.
Okay, great.
He wasn't having passageways through his camps. It was just through the road.
Right.
I apologize. I don't necessarily know the geography up there as to when you refer to the road, but I mean, whatever access has typically been granted and whatever would satisfy the commission, I'd be more than happy to make that accommodation if I can, no doubt. And when I say if I can, I mean, I'm perfectly willing to do that. But if there's some guidance that we're missing that says that we're not allowed to do that, then, obviously that would be something that could change the ability for you guys to grant that opportunity or for us to use it. Would that access that he provides typically have also traveled next to the area that we typically used? Because if it does, then it's never been an issue in the past.
Yes, the road goes by the outside. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think that would be a problem if it's something that's always been open and we've been running up there and he's been running up there. I don't see it as a huge obstacle.
Other questions from the commissioners? Marilyn?
I don't have any issue with it, but I wondered about whether or not there would be any costs that we would incur that would need to be picked up, like picking up of trash or other things.
Well, our caretaker is still there, and he'll be doing, basically the duties that he would have been doing if Marcus was there.
Okay.
So I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Okay.
Any other questions? Motion to approve the use of the camps preliminary, depending on what Jim's needs are going to be down the road.
I'll move.
Second?
All in favor? Eric?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes?
Margaret?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Peter, yes. Okay, Jim.
So you guys can't see the smile on my face, but I got to tell you, with the level of uncertainty and unknowns that we're trying to plan for, knowing that that space is available to us is having a huge impact on our potential success to offer something meaningful, safe, and in a great environment. So I can't thank you enough for the consideration, and I will work through Carol to nail down any details that need to be nailed down, and we'll be good stewards with whatever you entrust us with. So thank you very much.
Okay, Jim. Yeah, good luck.
All right.
Okay, we're going to move on to our second action item, which is a request to prune a tree at 3 Elderberry Way. Is Carol, are the Coxes here?
Yes, I am.
Ian's
Can you hear me?
He's now unmuted.
Okay, great.
Perfect. Great. Thank you all. Really appreciate the time tonight. My name's Ian Cox. My wife and I recently moved to 3 Elderberry Way back in September of last year. I actually grew up in the Westford area, went through the Westford schooling system. So I have made the roundabout turn back from Boston back into the suburbs recently, and good timing with all that's going on, because I would have been going crazy in Boston. But with this, my wife and I have recently been going through a little bit of a partial shade analysis within our backyard here. And given the storm that happened almost 2 weeks ago, I guess at this point, 2 weeks to last Friday, Saturday, we had a little bit of tree damage that came down where it actually absorbed about the majority of my Saturday and part of Sunday, and actually interrupted some of the work that we were doing on a fence in our backyard here. So this accelerated the work that I actually sent along to Carol and Matthew. We have a very large oak tree in our backyard here. I've had a couple different groups come out, a couple different professional tree organizations come out. It's about 75 feet tall here, and I have Scott's from Westford actually coming in tomorrow at 9:30. They've given me some initial assessments on how this would actually work here, but my goal is twofold. Where or less, we're a little bit concerned moving forward, not living in the suburbs before. I know that you guys get a little bit different storms with some of the trees here. Living in Boston, we didn't really have to worry about that. So we were a little concerned and wanted to trim and healthily prune about 20 or so feet, and the limbs that are hanging off of our tree that are into our yard. Scott's, when they came originally, and the two other groups also acknowledged the same fashion here, they would be bringing a bucket truck and parking this in our driveway, and then kind of bucking it over into our backyard, which is probably about a 40-foot, 45-foot distance from driveway to backyard, and pruning down some of these limbs that currently are right on our property. The tree itself, the stump itself, is on the property line, I should say, but the majority of the limbs are actually falling directly into our property. Where the property line ends, and why I had reached out to Carol and Matthew, is considered conservation easement, which I had provided the certified plot plan as well as a couple different pictures and the authorization from our HOA to actually discuss this with you all. So I understand this to be the means of who I need to speak to around this, but the majority of the limbs are all directly within our property. The actual stump itself falls within this conservation easement, which is about 75 or so feet, looking at this property plan, 70 to 75 feet onto the Bruce Freeman Trail. So the proposal I had in plan here was just to healthily trim some of these limbs that are hanging into our backyard, and then also trim some from the top, as the trees, the deciduous trees that are surrounding are probably about 15 or so feet shorter than this. The oak by itself is by far the oldest and largest that's out here, but with the amount of sway that we got from the recent storm and microburst, it brought a significant concern to my wife and I. So I think that was pretty much the gist of this. I would be absorbing all the costs. It would be done professionally. Again, if Scott's comes tomorrow and all is well within their proposal plan and everything is all right with the Conservation Commission here, we'd probably be moving forward with them. I'm happy to address any questions and do appreciate the time. So thank you very much.
Questions from the commission?
I guess I had one. And when I read the proposal, I saw there was, some pruning of limbs, and I was like, okay, I can understand that. I thought I read in the proposal that they were looking to cut some of the top of one of the trees, and I thought that might kill the tree. So I wasn't wanting to have any work that would potentially, kill a tree.
Absolutely, totally. And that's why I wanted to get this done professionally. From what I've been told from the 3 different organizations I had, the way that they would go about this, and I'm not a tree expert by any means, so that's why I wanted to bring these folks in, is that this would not kill the tree. And I'd be happy when Scott's comes again tomorrow to get this written so that we can all provide this back to you all just to move forward. But yeah, that's not not what I'm trying to do by any means. But there's a couple pieces at the top of the tree, which I'm actually looking at right now, which are kind of dangerously swaying back and forth, that actually had some damage from that microburst. And
I had over 10 drop in my yard from that microburst.
What was that? I'm sorry.
So, yeah, I felt it. So I know where you're coming from, and then some.
Yes. So that's, I wasn't planning on doing this immediately, but given the last storm, we lost power for a couple days here, and I spent some time cleaning this up. So trying to avoid anything similar to that next time.
Yep.
Okay, so do we needed a motion to approve him of pruning the tree?
Yeah, Peter, can I just make sure you realize that it is an approved or an allowed use within the conservation restriction, okay?
Right, okay, yeah, motion?
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Eric?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Peter? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Actually, Peter?
Yeah.
I did have one follow-on question for Ian.
Of course.
With all the debris that you've been picking up from the branches and stuff that fell, where's that being disposed of?
So we do have a fire pit in our backyard. It's been controlled fire. Everything has been kind of timed at this point. It's just been a controlled fire burn.
Okay, so you're not, so stuff is not ending up in the conservation restriction area?
It's currently in my backyard right now.
Okay, no, but it just, in terms of one of the things we don't want to do is have people put their, down branches and stuff in the conservation area.
No, I've been disposing it when I can in a controlled fire format.
Thank you very much.
Of course, thank you.
Okay, we're good. Have a good evening.
Thank you all so much.
Yep. Okay, we're moving on to our next agenda item, which is a request for sign and kiosk at Edwards Conservation Land. I know Bill's here. Bill would like to speak.
Bill, you need to unmute your microphone. Are you there?
Okay, I just did. Can you hear me now?
Yep. Go ahead, Bill.
In Nabnasset, there is a nice piece of conservation land, but it has a problem of dumping in 2 places. It's not most of it, but there's 2 really major dumping areas that have been going on for years. I learned about this from a person who lives nearby, Noel Donovan. And so the reason I brought it up to the commission tonight is not just to tell you about it, so it would go on a list of something to do when we get time, but actually Noel and I could help right away. Within a few days, we could put up no dumping signs at those 2 places. And that would inform the people who have been doing this, that this really is conservation land and shouldn't be dumping there. And while having said that, I'd also like to offer to put up a nice sign at the beginning of this area, which is right across from Edwards Beach, to make it clear just looking at it that this is conservation land. It's not just woods that happens to be undeveloped. It's town-owned conservation land, and also to put up a kiosk there. So that's what we're offering to do, in case you'd like that.
Yeah, sounds fine to me. Everybody in agreement?
Yes.
No problem with that.
Where are the signs where are the signs proposed for?
Well, let me see here. Do you have a map handy of that? I mean, I have one here. You may not. There's something called Hemlock Road, which goes right.
There's already a sign at the end of that says no dumping.
You're right. The person who lives there told me that her husband's grandfather put that up there 40 years ago. That's not, in other words, it's not a town sign, and all the dumping
Looks
has been
exactly-
going.
I don't know where it came from, but it looks exactly like the town sign.
Maybe he got it from the town. That's true. What I'm proposing is some of the kind that we use now. They're green signs about this big, about about maybe 16 inches high, or let's see. Actually, they're horizontal. They're about 10 inches high, 10 by 12 maybe. And I think they're nicely worded. It says, "Please help us to keep this land natural and attractive." And so I think that will inform everybody that things are different now. This is town defended land, and it's not just an old rusty sign from years ago. It's two new signs right there.
This is not an old rusty sign that's at the end of Hemlock.
I would have described it as
I've
old
been down
rusty.
there like 3 or 4 times in the last 2 weeks.
What did you say, Jim?
The sign at the end of Hemlock is in good shape. There's no problem with it.
Well,
I don't want another sign. One sign is more than enough.
It's not having any effect right now. The people are dumping it.
Well,
You must
if
have
one
seen
sign
that.
doesn't have any effect, how is 2 signs going to be good, and then 3 signs
But
and 4
Jim, could
signs?
you update the sign?
Can you what?
What did you
Can
say,
you
Eric?
like remove the old sign and put up the new sign?
That's what I was gonna say.
I was thinking of 2 signs
Why?
right at the end of the pavement, and they would be new. They would be, it seems to me they would be very evident that this is something that the town values and doesn't want that dumping to continue the way it has been for so long.
So Bill, I have a question too. It looks like Marilyn does too, but everyone after the commission.
Marilyn?
Okay, well, first of all, obviously that sign, which I agree that there's a sign there, is not doing any good. So it wouldn't hurt to do this and have a second sign in terms of being very current and somebody taking a look that we are noticing what's happening. The second thing I wanted to ask is, do we have any recourse? Can we do any fining for dumping?
Hmm.
At the
I don't
commission,
know.
any fining if there's dumping on our property?
Couldn't understand that, Marilyn, but were you asking, do we have information about the dumpers?
No, I want to know if I caught you dumping, okay, in an egregious act, do we have any fine that we can levy, or we have no clout whatsoever? Which is it?
Marilyn, our rules and regulations allow for us to fine, but we would have to have sufficient evidence to be able to do that. You know, if we knew that it was a neighbor, or we had, some video of a truck or something like that, I think we'd probably be able to do that, but we'd have to see how it goes. We do have the ability under your rules and regulations.
And we can also put up a camera if it becomes egregious.
We could, we don't have one.
Okay, just asking.
Yep.
I guess I'm for anything that perhaps would put a stop to this.
No.
3 signs.
Well,
Yeah, 4.
I have a couple of comments or questions too. So I guess my comment is that I'm not quite sure. Personally, I'd like to be somewhat consistent with our language on our signs. And so I don't know whether and I don't have a problem with the longer words that Bill has sort of said, but I've never seen that sign, I don't think. I do like the sign to have the Conservation Commission's contact information on it, because if you're going to put a sign and somebody sees it and sees the dumping, I mean, at least they'd have some knowledge as to who they'd report it to, as well as the town logo should typically be on it. So, I mean, if you were in favor of it, I think then we should, I could work with Bill and Noel or whomever to get, the right signage done. And then the other comment is really about the kiosk. I do feel as though the kiosk, we should have discussion as to what the purpose of the kiosk is, what information is going to be put on it, and who's going to maintain it, because we have had a number of kiosks put up by scouts, which is always great, but then they get vandalized and they look really horrible and they don't get taken care of because we don't have, staff for doing a lot of land management and maintenance. Those are my thoughts and questions.
So why don't we agree to put up a new sign that Carol approves of and take down the old sign?
I agree.
With that.
Okay?
Yep.
And the kiosk, I mean, let
Hold
Bill
off.
come up with a plan of who's gonna do the kiosk, what the design is, and he'll have to come back with that.
Okay. How
Okay.
about this? The one third thing that I'm offering is to put up a nice attractive sign at the entrance, sort of like what you see at the behind town hall and over at Westford Academy, one of those nice attractive looking signs to, by the way, let me make this point. I talked to two abutters over there who both said they're totally unhappy with the dumping, but they would wish that the neighbors would become more supportive of this. And so I'm thinking that it would be nice if we could change that over to, instead of being sort of an eyesore, to be something that they know about and they support. And maybe there would be a Friends of this Nabnasset area group that would take care of it. And so you see what I mean? It's a kind of a change of culture. And so what I'm saying now is that sign I'm thinking of in the at the front would be like the one that's at Town Hall, and it would sort of set that what's the word again? The impression of this as being a really nice area that the town is proud of.
Well, Marilyn?
I think for tonight, I would be satisfied with just replacing the sign and hoping that would accomplish something. And I think Bill's ideas are good, and he should come forward with them at another point when he's made them more specific and go over it with Carol before, and then we can relook at some of that.
Yeah, I agree. Bill, you need to sit down with Carol and go over what both of these signs are going to say. And for now, we'll replace the existing sign with your new sign, and we can talk further about the sign at the entrance in the kiosk.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
No, Bill had mentioned two locations where there was dumping. One was Hemlock, and where's the other one, Bill? Maple
Road. That one doesn't have any sign, but it does have a lot of dumping.
Okay. Well, once again,
the people that have observed this over the years, have they do they ever see who does it?
I think they do. I didn't ask about that. They probably do know.
That would be a little bit helpful if we could talk to the people that were doing the dumping and tell them don't do it anymore.
Well, there's two of them that I know.
Going on for years. The note you sent us at our last meeting indicated that somebody had been observing a pickup truck dumping for years. If it's been going on for years and we don't know anything about who's doing it, it's, putting up more signs and more signs and more signs isn't going to do much.
Well, I predict that this sign will do much, but we'll find out soon. Now, I also can ask those two people that I met if they can help with that point that you're making, Jim, about how it would help the town to if she could help to identify who these people are. So I'll talk to them both about that.
Okay. Thank you, Bill.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay, we're going to move on to our last item, which is the minutes from April 22nd.
Peter, Noel Donovan also.
Oh, she raised her hand. Okay. Yeah. Noel, you need to unmute.
Hello.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi. I am concerned about I agree with Jim that putting up another sign on the end of Hemlock Road probably won't cause much difference. My main concern about what's going on the end of Hemlock was I was told by Westford police that the town actually went in there with some of their machinery and moved all of that brush and debris farther down into the wetland. And there's no blockage there. There's no rocks or gate or anything. So really any vehicle can get in that area and dump whatever they want. So I think along with the sign that's there, maybe putting some boulders in that area. There are already quite a few large boulders in the area that could just be moved to kind of block off that little spot. But I was wondering if the town had approval from the Conservation Commission to go in there and move that brush farther into the wetland.
Nope.
No. We'll have Carol talk to Chip.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess I'd ask the question, do you think it's related to like snow plowing? I don't know if gets pushed in during the winter.
No,
No,
this is, I live right, I walk this property pretty much every single day, and this happened within the past month. The town went in there and moved all this debris farther into the wetland.
Okay, I could certainly talk with our highway crew or highway superintendent about it and make sure. Usually what we've done as far as the rocks go is when they are in a slower period, like right now, they're still kind of reeling from the microburst and all their paving projects that get lined up through the summer. But when they have a slower period, they're usually really accommodating to help us move some boulders and get, demarcation created.
Okay, and is there any way that if they didn't have permission to move all of that debris farther into the wetland, could they go in there and remove what is currently there to kind of avoid the invasive species from taking over that area?
I think I'd have to look at it with them to see what, what extent of work would be, whether it's manual or whether it's equipment, and again, what the timing is, what would be the best time for them to do it. But I can work with them on that.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, great.
Great.
Okay, can we move on to our minutes of April 22nd? Commission have any changes, modifications?
None.
Everybody's good?
Good.
Motion to approve?
I move.
Second.
Eric, all in favor? Eric?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Peter? Yes. Okay, that's it. Anything else?
Oh.
Sounds
say
good.
No, just don't forget to come tomorrow to sign the order conditions. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. All right,
See you
Carol.
tomorrow afternoon.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Eric?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Peter? Yes. Okay, you guys, have a good evening.
Night.
Thank
Stay
you.
well.
See ya.
Thank you.